All right, it's almost 1 o'clock. Mr. Jim Godfrey has an approved absence today. He had some personal items that he is still dealing with, and so I will be running the meeting today. Larry Tobias, first vice chairman of the Pprta CAC. So I'd like to welcome everyone that is here in person and also all those that are on Zoom. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. Rick, do we have the quorum for the meeting?
We do have a quorum, but let's see if some other folks are online. We still need to hear from Tamara Dipner. Is she online? Yes. Karen Aspelin, is she on?
Tamara Dipner's online.
Okay. Ann Nichols. And Stephen Hart. Yes. Okay. So we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Like to have a motion to approve the agenda?
Question before you do,
Yes.
which alternates can vote today?
Oh,
All alternates can vote today.
okay, so all alternates can vote today. And yes,
I was just going to move to approve the agenda.
okay, thank
I'll
you.
second that.
All right, Dave seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved unanimously. I'd like to read the purpose statement for the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. The primary objective of the CAC is to ensure the capital, maintenance, and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters at the November 2nd, 2004, November 6th, 2012, and November 7th, 2017 ballot measures are accomplished with Pprta funds. The committee reports directly to the Pprta Board of Directors. All right, public comment. Do we have any public comment, or do we have any comments from the members that may not be included on the agenda for today?
Nope.
Hearing none. And Jessica, there's no one online with any comments? Okay, thank you. So hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from the March 2nd, 2022 meeting. Does anyone have any comments about the minutes of the meeting from March the 2nd? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval? Richard approves for approval.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Who was the second? And as a friendly reminder, just make sure state your name for
Yeah.
motion.
Brian.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the minutes of the meeting from March the 2nd, 2022 are approved. Financial report, Bev. Looks like we're starting off the
Oh, yeah.
year good.
Yes, good afternoon. So we received for January 10,756,000, which is 537,000 over the monthly budget, or 5.3% ahead so far. It'll be interesting next month. Usually February is kind of a low month for receipts. You can kind of see in the 2022 budget column there, 9,760,000. So it will be interesting to see if how that comes in this next month. So compared to last year on page 2, we're ahead 758,000 or 7.6%. And the rest of the financials, are there any questions about them?
Do we have any questions for Bev?
A quick question, help us understand what you think it's attributable to. It's great news. I love always hearing great news. If you had to pick one or two of the most likely reasons we're doing so well.
I think inflation, which is, we're getting hit both
Hadn't thought
sides
about
on
that.
that. So
It works both
we're-
ways.
Yeah. So with this incredible inflation, and then we're receiving a lot more, 1% of inflated, or, things that have gone up quite a bit. And it's good news, but it's not really as good as you might think, because our costs are going up.
And that was my related question, which is how are our costs looking? Are we seeing, are they converging, diverging? Are the construction costs going up faster than the
What do
revenues?
you think? I think they're going up faster. Yeah.
Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer, my head is nodding up and down. I think that we are seeing construction costs increase. We've seen somewhere between 25 and 40% on some of our bids, and
I'm sorry, there was 14%,
25 to 40.
40%. Well, that's
40.
quite a bit different.
Yes. It's very
So-
concerning.
So long-term even for this and finishing up the capital projects, I'm not sure that our revenue is really keeping pace with the inflation of the construction costs. So
Wow.
that's kind of
You're
discouraging.
supposed to be bringing the bearer
Good news.
good news.
We didn't need that bomb.
Anyway,
Was it Harry Truman said, bring me a one-handed economist? On the one hand, if they only have one hand, they have no on the other hand.
yeah,
So
yes.
thank you for the on the one hand.
Well, I'm an accountant, not an economist, but the difference between an accountant and an economist?
No.
An economist told me this. Accountants work with real numbers. Anyway, any more questions?
Do you think that you'll give us an update next month on what some of the construction costs and that you're having come in on some of the projects, or is it too early?
It's when you go out to bid and they're coming back. And so you'll see that when the member government staffs present the approval of the contracts that are coming up. And you'll see it also maybe most likely when we have the amended budget, you'll see some of the budgets going up for increased costs. I mean, we'll have more revenue to allocate, but
That'll sort of be eaten up by the increased costs.
yeah. It's
Well,
very wild right now.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get an update next month and see what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't see Gail here. Are we going to have a,
I'm on the phone, Mr. Tobias.
oh, you are here. All right.
I am here, kind of. So Gail Sturdivant, City Engineer, Deputy Public Works Director. Hope you can all hear me okay, and I apologize for not being there in person. I did want to go through 7 contracts for the city for your consideration today. So I'll step through each one, and I do have some support staff available also on Zoom should you have some further questions. The city's first contract is for the 2022 Bridge Construction and Inspection Program. This program is designed that this contract would bring two staff members that have been working on the city's bridge program under our existing contract with NV5 to go with their new employer, who happens to be Roxell Consulting. They have this have continuity for that program through the services. The total cost of this contract is anticipated to be $468,161.92. This cost is intended to be offset entirely by funds previously allocated for the NV5 contract at this point. Roxell was selected through the city's on-call process through an RFP, and so we're really just keeping the continuity of those two staff members with this change. Questions on that particular contract? All right.
Hey, Gail, no
Yeah,
questions
we-
on the contract, but the audio is just a little muffled. Is there a way maybe you could improve the audio quality just a bit? It's just a little difficult for some of us here to hear you.
I don't know. I'm calling internationally, so I'm not sure that.
Oh,
how much-
okay, no
Maybe you're
worries.
a little muted for me as well, so I apologize. The city's second contract is for the Adaman Alley improvements. This is a project as the city's kicking off some alley rehab improvements. This one is like the first one that's a little bit on steroids, where we have a lot of utilities that are in this alley that need to be replaced, and we need to go through and improve the pavement through that area, not just from a road surface standpoint and with the utilities, but we also have some significant drainage issues in this particular alley. But what's unique about this project, there's actually two items with this project that are unique. One is that when you go through and do the improvements both with culverts and utilities and then with the pavement afterwards, we're going to be turning it over to the admin club in the downtown partnership for an art installation that would happen after the fact. This contract right now is also intended to be a CMCG type contract where we're out to bid. We hope to get a construction contractor on board to help with the subsurface work, in particular the utilities and the drainage improvements in advance of coming through and do the pavement. Right now, we're anticipating the total cost of the contract to be $936,000, of which today we're not anticipating Pprta funding. But I wanted to bring it to your attention, one, so it's not surprised if we come through and have to add maintenance dollars in the future. And also, I thought it was a neat project that you guys may see some work on in the future. I also included a vicinity map in your packet and also a presentation on what that alley is intended to look like or how it's intended to function at the end. Are there particular questions on that item?
Rick?
Just to clarify, since I can only understand about 50% of what Gail's saying, just to clarify, there's zero PPRTA money in this. This is mainly for information and potential future paving of the alley out of the city's PPRTA maintenance funds.
I believe your understanding is correct. And this initial contract we're putting out also does not include the pavement. We do have $500,000 scheduled with city funds to cover pavement, but if we need to bring in additional maintenance dollars above and beyond that, you may see a change order in the future. I believe Ryan Fitz is also on Zoom as well if you have other specific questions about this project.
Richard?
Gail, the planner in me thinks this is an excellent project. It's the sort of thing that if I were on a regional planning commission or even a city planning commission, better, I would support this 100%. And I do think it's a good project. However, having said that, I know there are no funds in it yet. And but I anticipate from what has been said that it may come forth even at the next meeting or later for a request for PPRTA funds. And while I suspect the vote will probably approve it, I think this is a terrible use of PPRTA funds. It can be done under the concept of the program use of capital funds. Now, there have been other projects that I have raised objections to in that area. I basically am always for improving highways, maintaining highways. But when we get down to alleys, for Lord's sake, that is a local issue. And I do not think regional funds should be spent on it, regardless of the fact that you can probably approve a kayak. I think that's what Rick said one day under the law.
Mhm.
But so it's legal to do it. It'll probably pass if you bring it in. But for God's sake, I ask you to try to find some city funds for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I will say we are using, our intent is to use the city funds, and we think that we have enough budgeted to cover it. And if we do come back with any PPRT funds, it would be maintenance funding only. And we use maintenance funding for any kind of payment we have as well. So, but I understand your point. Thank you very much, Richard.
And
any other
I'd
questions
just like
on
to
that
say,
concept? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Gail, also from talking to Rick about this particular project and looking at the documentation, you know, the majority of the cost of the project is going to be borne by the city of Colorado Springs and also city utilities, because they're going to be doing a lot of work in there with underground utilities, drainage, things of that nature. So it'll get to a point where because of the work that's going to be done in that alley, Richard, it's not going to be related whatsoever to the project itself, you know, the pictures that we see here in our packet. But if they do need to come back, it would only be maintenance for repaving that alley. The alley is not, I went and looked at the alley. The alley is not in that good of condition at this point. And, you know, after you dig it up to put in utility work and drainage and that, it's not going to be in the best of shape. So what they might come back is to use some of the maintenance funds, maintenance only from PPRTA to repave that alley to bring it up to standard. Is that a good description, Gail?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Carlos?
All right. Yeah, absolutely correct. I'm going to move on to the third contact unless there's additional questions.
Carlos has a question, Gail.
Yes, Gail, just to follow up on the
Okay.
questions that were there. This alleyway, it is part of the city's public right of way. Is that correct?
It is part of the city's public right.
And the alleyways are part of
Thank you.
our transportation network. Is that right? The
That is
alleyways?
correct.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, Rick?
And just a historical perspective, in the early years, I can't remember how many years, but the city did use its PPRTA maintenance funds to pave alleys because I personally drove those alleys after they were paved in my quarterly drive around. So there is plenty of precedent for the city using its PPRTA maintenance funds to pave alleys. It's just a judgment call as to whether or not they want to do that.
Dave?
In fact, my question was almost exactly related to that. The very seldom have I ever disagreed with Richard, and I don't think I will necessarily in this case. Help me with Rick with the founding documents. Are there any policy statements, voter promises, commitments on the ballot that have reflected the use of these funds should be largely, and I agree completely with where I think the spirit of where Richard's going. But I wonder, is there any policy document that we need to fall back on that says yes, no, or there's some other way to approach this?
There's no policy document that defines maintenance. The only policy document that defines transportation is in the RTA state law, and which includes airports and gondolas, etc. So the state law is very generous, but no ballot or IGA or board policy that defines maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I mentioned too, the city is going through and doing an alley evaluation process. So we will have some other maintenance projects likely in the future, whether they're coming out for Pprta funds for those or not. It's still unclear at this point as we're continuing that evaluation. But the bottom line is they are an important part of our transportation network, particularly in our downtown core. And we look at increased density that we have to have mobility options to get freight in and out, trash receptacles in and out to support these facilities that do right on the backbone of our transportation network. Any other questions or discussion topics on that particular contract, or can I move on to the
Yes,
third one?
Rick,
Gail, back to the technology difficulties in understanding it. At our end, it's like you're speaking through a pillow. So I'd please experiment, and because the noise of your last word runs into the noise of your next word. So let's experiment, please, and speak a little more slowly between words and see if that helps.
I will do my best. Thank you. The city's third contract is for the Galley Road over West Fork Fan Creek Bridge Replacement Project. That is an ALS project. The city is in the final engineering phase. This particular contract for $40,181 is to support deeper subsurface investigation to assist with the proper utility relocations as they fit in proximity to the bridge. That would go to Stantec for that particular work. Questions about that contract? The city's fourth contract is for our roadway and airfield marking pavement. I want to let you know the reason why airfield is in there, because of the paint supply device, they can be used for airfields under a master contract. However, this particular contract where the city is asking for Pprta approval for $400,000 would be used only for roadway maintenance. These would be materials that would be used by city crews to provide striping on our roadways. The city went through an RFP process, and there were two proposals received. Enos Flint Industries was selected for that contract. Any work or any questions on that contract?
Just so that everybody understood, Gail, it's roads only, no airfields. That the airfield just happens to be in the title of the type of paint.
The city's next contract is long life pavement marking services. This is where we went up to an RFP process. We did receive 3 responses, and this is to bring on-call services for material, equipment, and labor to install pavement markings using Pprta maintenance dollars. This contract would be awarded to up to $400,000 to road safety traffic. Questions on this? Okay. Moving on to contract number 6. This contract is a little bit unique. It is to allow or request approval to use up to $100,000 of the on-street bikeway improvements to assist with a multi-department project that installs a signalized trail crossing along Sand Creek at the Hancock Expressway. This contract is currently out for bid right now. We anticipate the total cost to come in at $676,442, of which $100,000 would be PPRTA funds. We're asking for your permission to take this forward to the board. The bid opening is on April 12th, and we will be walking on that contract with the exact dollar amount, but we in no case anticipate the PPRTA amount to exceed $100,000. Any questions on that contract? And there is a vicinity map located in your packet. Okay, the city's last contract is for the Colorado Springs Intermodal Mobility Plan, or Connect COS. This adds additional work and a time extension to have some additional public engagement to include in-person open houses in each of the council districts, plus some one-on-one stakeholder meetings. Also includes some support for PPRTA previously come up with projects that come out of Connect COS and going into for further consideration for the ballot measure. This also would extend the project schedule, and we would anticipate wrapping this up towards the end of 2022. A question, and then the amount is $174,730 for Belfort Coal overrides. Questions on this?
Hearing
With that,
no
Mr. Chair,
questions, hearing no questions, either in the room.
Not a question.
You ready to? We have a person ready to, I was going to say, do I hear a motion for approval of these 7 contracts as presented by Gail? And remember, when you make your motion, please identify your name so that Jessica can pick up on it real easy. All right, do we have a motion?
Hello, excuse me, this is Karen Asplin. I need to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is Scott Barnhart. I move to approve all city contracts as presented.
This is Tamara Dipner. I second the motion.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Or do we have any additional discussion, I should ask, before we do that? Hearing none, do I have, Richard, did you have additional?
Just I plan to vote for this because there are no PPRTA funds in it.
All right. All in favor for the approval of the motion and the second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. All right, thank you. All right, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and the rest of the PPRTA Citizen Advisory Committee, Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. Today, we have 2 items for your consideration. The first is related to our Highway 105 project, and this is related to a property acquisition item. We are moving this item ahead of another portion of the property acquisition because it's kind of in 2 phases, but this is with the Monument Academy Corporation, and this is a reimbursement agreement. This is because as we are doing our Highway 105 project, we looked at several different options to provide appropriate capacity on the roadway, and looked at our overall concept plan for Highway 105. And currently the Monument Academy School accesses Highway 105 through the Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints Church, and then directly north of Morning Canyon Road. So what we're doing is we are closing that access to Highway 105 from the school. And as a result, we have, we're working with the school to remedy and mitigate incurable damages that are a result of the property acquisition that we are doing, and also the closure of the access. And what I would note is that this is a culmination of looking at multiple different options to address this access, and was really the least expensive. But what it does is it results of having to provide mitigation for the impacts that the project is having on this property. So what I would say is that, just as an example, we looked at also doing a frontage road along this, and that costs about $10 million. So this was a significant long-term thing that and the best solution, the most cost-effective solution that we came up with. And so what this agreement does is rather than the county including this work in our construction project, this allows this work to move forward this summer. And then it paves the way for us to do our project and hopefully get to our project construction next year. And so what we are doing is providing them reimbursement for work that they are doing on their property to then accommodate what our widening project will accomplish. So this is for $1.55 million. And what this will do is provide construction funds and then construction management. The county will oversee that, and in coordination with Pprta to make sure that the money is spent correctly. In addition to that, it also includes a certain stipend. I think it's about $60,000 in the agreement, and that's part of the overall 1.55, and that's to reimburse them for their project management and cost for overseeing that. And that usually in agreements like this, where we do property acquisition, is usually much higher. I think this is a kind of a total of 5%, and usually it's 10 to 15% when we do property acquisition. So I think we've done in my opinion, we've done a good job of trying to come to a good solution that allows our project to continue and is the most cost-effective and timely solution for all involved. Any questions on that?
Jennifer, in your documentation, you indicate that this went before the Board of County Commissioners yesterday at their meeting. Was that approved by the county commissioners?
Yes, it was unanimous approval by the Board of County Commissioners.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
With if I understand correctly, the academy is actually going to handle contracting for the construction of this and will reimburse them. Is there any concern that with them having control of that, will there be any potential impact on the schedule of the 105 project?
No, I think, and this is partially why we're doing this, is that they will have a phase one and they'll be able to get that going. Our Highway 105 project actually has some federal dollars. And so we're still finalizing some property acquisition and some environmental clearances. And I think what this will do is allow it to pave the way for our contract and our work, so that they can get ahead of that and hopefully get at least their phase one completed this year, which is on the back side of their property. And then as we work on the front side with our wall and the work that we're doing along Highway 105 that's adjacent to their property, it will allow us to work together with them on phase two. So we have very carefully, very deliberately looked at this and tried to make sure that we are doing the most efficient, cost efficient solution here. And then just also, oh, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Richard?
I think Jennifer has explained this very, very well. I am extremely familiar with this particular location and used to live near it and traveled often by it. It produces, because of the school is an independent school. It has an awful lot of automobile traffic that backs up on 105 and really just ruins any travel, certainly going from west to east. And might even, I don't know, it might not impact the travel heading west. But it's a terrible situation. Jennifer asked me a couple of years ago, did I have any ideas as a traffic engineer, which is my background. I said, no, I have no idea how in the hell you're going to solve this. And it's an unusual to do what is being done, but I understand it perfectly. And it fits, this does fit in perfectly with my way to use funds for the improvement and operation of a major highway. This is a major east-west highway. So, or west-east, either way. So I'm fully supportive of it.
Do we have any other questions on this particular project?
The second item we have for your consideration today is just related to our Mesa Ridge Parkway improvements. We've gotten through some level of our original contract with preliminary design, and we are wanting to add property acquisition services. We did not include property acquisition services in our original contract because we wanted to make sure that we identified how many that we had so that we could get a good cost for that. So this is property acquisition services with TRS for the project in the amount of approximately $46,000. And then that's all I had for today. I'm happy to answer any other further questions.
Do we have any additional questions for Jennifer on either one of these projects? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of these two projects as presented by Jennifer?
So moved. This is David Zelenak. Happy to do so.
Second, Jones.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor for these two projects, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously for the approval of these two projects for the county. All right, City of Manitou Springs.
Hi there. This is Joel Grabenik. I'm the city engineer for Manitou Springs. This is my first CAC meeting, so glad to meet most of you virtually. I'm just going to follow the lead of everyone else, but this project is our major capital improvement project on the west end of Manitou Springs, and this allows us to extend JR Engineering's construction management contract. The project is taking significantly longer than it was supposed to, and we've been working closely with JR to keep their existing contract as long as possible. Basically, we've asked them to cut back their hours on the project, but this amendment and extension allows us to have enough time and money with them for them to continue helping us manage and perform materials testing throughout the duration of the project.
Do we have any questions for Manitou Springs on this particular project?
Rick Hoover, I have just one quick one.
Yes.
The contractor that's doing the work, they're going to do it in 4 months, and we're looking at how many now?
Well, we're not done yet, but it's going to be closer to 14 or 15 when it's all said and done.
Are they compensating you for that?
Well, it's a much more complicated conversation than that. The utility work that was done on the project was really not accurate or sufficient. And I will say Wildcat is our prime contractor, and they have actually been terrific in helping and managing some of those changes. I mean, what they bid the project to be is not what we've ended up having to build. And so it's been a bit of a design build effort at times. And they've really been a great partner in helping us get this far.
Well, they are a good outfit, so they'll keep
And
you.
it's a good question. And I will also mention that Manitou has learned a lot from this project. And in our future projects, we've already implemented some much more thorough engineering effort and utility effort that this project just didn't quite have lined up properly.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve this?
This is Scott Barnhart. I move to approve the contract as presented.
This is Joan Trace, second.
Okay, Brian and Joan, they have moved and seconded the approval of this project. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this project, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, next item D, contracts for engineering cost estimates for Pprta 3 capital projects. Rick?
As the committee will remember, the board set aside $500,000 and then added another 150,000 to it. The extra 150,000 was for the city, but the city has just shy of 500,000 to spend on hiring through the Pprta cost estimates for their proposed Pprta 3 capital projects. The CAC and the board have already approved several contracts for the city's use through Pprta, one with the county. The city is proposing 2 more contracts. And in the summary at the bottom of the middle of the page of page 2 of my memo. So proposing Olson for $91,640, Wilson and Company for $21,104, and a deductive change order with a previously approved basis partner change order, a deductive amount of $19,292.50. So that's what the city staff is recommending to Pprta staff, and Pprta staff is then recommending to the CAC and the board is those 3 pieces for a motion.
Larry, this is Karen Asplin again. I need to recuse myself from this vote.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments relative to this item? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval? Scott has motioned for approval. Do I have a second?
Ryan Bissiger, second.
I think somebody got. Okay. All right, do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously as presented.
So that would be 16-0 with 1 abstention.
That is correct. Karen abstained on that vote. All right, moving on to item 7, City of Colorado Springs Transit Service Report.
Good afternoon, Brian Vituli. I'm the Transit Planning Supervisor with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metropolitan Transit with your monthly transit report. So for the month of February, for our local fixed route services, we provided nearly 111,000 trips for the month. We missed 1 day of operation because of a cancellation due to weather. We are still somewhat suffering from a shortage of operators. at least in February. The condition has gotten better over the last couple months. We've been able to add a lot of service back. So within the next couple months, you should be able to see hopefully some ridership increases. But for February of 22, services was down just a little over 4% as compared to February of 2021, and still 51% less than February of 2020. For our ADA paratransit service, we provided a little over 7,000 trips in February of 2022. Again, we lost 1 day of operation due to weather. That's an increase of over 17% as compared to February of 2021, but still down 37% from February of 2020. For our specialized paratransit taxi choice option, this is a program that restarted well a year ago, March of 2021, and it's still ramping back up. But in February of 2022, services were utilized 15 weekdays, 3 Saturdays and 1 Sunday, totaled 80 riders, and it's an increase of 11% over January of 2022. And finally, for our van pool services, we operated 7 vans in the month of February, with 38 active riders making 734 trips. So that's an increase of a little over 17% from February of 2021, but still down quite a bit from February of 2020. And on the final page of the report, just a project update. We completed our public process for our spring 2022 service change, and we are moving forward with the items as they were proposed. So that is a restructuring of Route 23 and adding 2 battery electric buses and increased frequency to the northern segment of that route. The southern segment will be renamed Route 24, and that will operate from basically South Carefree back to the Citadel Mall. And then the other item is operating regular service on Memorial, Independence, and Labor Days. And both of these improvements will go into effect on Sunday, April 24th. And also next month, we don't really have anything to report new on the Downtown Transit Center, but next month we are planning to provide a brief presentation to the CAC on that item. So you can look forward to that. Any questions?
Yes, Carlos.
Sure, I had a good. Thank you, Brian Patilli. This is Carlos Pettis. I just was wanting to know if you had any comments or insight into our ridership elasticity, compared to our fuel prices. Gasoline prices are going up. Is ridership increasing or staying about the same in light of the increase in fuel, gasoline prices?
Well, this report doesn't really indicate that, because we were down, 4% over February of last year. But, as I said, we've been able to, our contractor's been able to hire many more operators. And so we put out a lot more service over the last month and a half. So we now are back to operating every route that we were before COVID. The only items that we still need to bring back are some of the high frequency services, like on Academy Boulevard and Route 1 from downtown to Academy and Hancock, and Route 5 from downtown to the Citadel Mall. All those high frequency routes that operate every 15 minutes during weekdays, they're still operating at 30-minute frequencies. So it's much improved from where we've been over the last several months, but we still have more operators to hire and more service to put out there. So I don't know, it's a little bit too early, Carlos, to make a judgment that we're seeing a bump up in ridership due to fuel prices, but hopefully we'll see some numbers trending up in the coming months.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Rick Hoover.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, Dave.
Just for what it's worth, department, I had a meeting with CDOT this morning and they were talking about the Mustang. Now that's the inner city over the road motor coaches they're running have not only caught back up to pre-COVID numbers. She said they were 135% as of last month over the best pre-COVID numbers Mustang ever had. So Mustang is just rocking and rolling in a good way. So hopefully, I guess the point there, Brian, to you and your folks, hopefully there's a brighter future coming your way because Mustang is just kicking it right now.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, that's certainly something we're hoping for. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Rick Hoover.
Yes.
I noticed that your riders per hour are increasing, even though your numbers aren't increasing. So I would have to think that your cost per rider is improving.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of a relationship to not operating as many revenue service hours as we should be. We're actually becoming more efficient because the ridership is still somewhat okay, but we're operating less service. So yeah, it's kind of a strange relationship, but we'd rather see the ridership numbers going up.
Well, that I understand that, but at least you're handling the lemons like they ought to be handled.
Right.
And good job.
Thank you.
All right, just one question, Brian. Over a long period of time, you have promised us information on the new transit station. Are we really going to have a presentation next month?
Well, yeah,
I'm just giving you bad time is all.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, as I reported last year, last month, in February, there was a council presentation and a lot of good news around that project. And we hope to provide a more detailed presentation next month to you all, because you certainly do deserve to hear all of the details, and because you've waited very patiently. So thanks for that.
We look forward to that very much.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, Dave. Microphone.
Thank you. One related question, Brian, just about transit in general. In my meeting I had earlier today with some of the senior CDOT transit folks, they were talking about these mobility hubs. And I know I brought this up in the past here at this group. Can you share with us any advancements? I know that for those who may not be acquainted with this mobility hub concept, that's basically you rip the median apart on I-25 and you install a middle of the freeway bus station where the Mustangs or the local transit buses don't have to get off the highway. You don't wait for the red light to make a left turn, right turn, get back on. Incredibly efficient in terms of having passengers, board and deboard the bus in the middle of the freeway. And that sounds like a crazy concept, but of course there's tunnels and safety barriers put into for all the obvious reasons. Is any of that working here? They did talk about a number of these mobility hubs coming to this region. And I think they mentioned they had 9 or maybe 11 of them along the I-25 corridor. Can you share anything about these hubs and what a change this would be for mobility in this region?
Well, sure. Yeah, so going back to Senate Bill 267 from a couple of years ago, that there was money in there that was identified for improvements to the Woodman Park and Ride. I believe also to the Tejon I-25 Park and Ride, which would do exactly what you're saying, kind of provide basically slip ramps off of the southbound and northbound off ramps where Mustang could just pull out of the off ramp or on ramp and load and unload rather than circulating through the park and ride. And so I believe that they have been identified for funding as part of Senate Bill 267. And with Senate Bill 260, I believe there's money identified to construct a mobility hub down in Fountain that would do, I believe, something similar and would probably enable an extension of Mustang from Colorado Springs down to Pueblo. I think that's somewhat a little bit farther off as far as being constructed, but those are kind of some of the plans for this region as far as mobility hubs or enhancements to existing park and rides.
Thank you. So nothing imminent. So the Woodman Road Mobility Hub isn't going to start breaking ground on Thursday of next week, huh? Sounds like
Not
that's
next
something-
Thursday, as far as
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions for Brian? All right, thank you very much for the information and updates.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on. City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County, state funding for transportation and Tabor limits. Are you going to handle that? Oh, Jennifer is, okay.
Sorry, microphone. Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer, and just want to mention that this is kind of a collaborative effort, kind of led by the city and the county, but obviously we've included and had discussions with PPRTA, PPACG, and some of the other member governments. So just to give you some background, in 2021, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 21260. That created some new fees collected by new state enterprises for transportation projects. And while CDOT gets some of that funding, some of that funding is being made available to local member governments. And how we obtain those funds is through grant applications. These funds are primarily state funds that are coming to local governments. And why that is important is that federal funds do not impact our statutory Tabor limits, but state funds that we receive do impact those. So that's something that we have to be very, very careful about as we look at grant opportunities. And so while this is good news, it really is concerning because today, at this point, the county and some of the other member governments are not applying for some of these or not able to because essentially what it does is it impacts our Tabor limits. And then essentially we're having to give back that money in a different way. So that really impacts our ability. So we're leaving money on the table is the bottom line. And so we've been working on looking at options to address this. And so we met as a group with PPRTA, PPACG, and some of the other member governments, and we've come up with at least one viable solution. And it may not be the most comprehensive solution, and there are some positive and negatives, but I think at this point, it's the most viable solution is to partner with PPRTA on grant applications. And we do that already as far as using PPRTA as a funding source. But what this would be different, how this would be different is that if we identify a state grant application that we want to apply for, the applicant would actually be PPRTA versus the member government. And it would be the member government as a joint sponsor. And similarly, we would still, as the local government, really be doing all the work, but realistically, that money would be coming through PPRTA versus through the member governments. And because, and correct me if I'm wrong, because PPRTA does not include a Tabor limitation, that allows PPRTA to be able to do that money. Yeah. Okay. So, so we have done this in the past. It's not something we have done as a matter of business, just because it's easier to, run that through our local governments. But we did do this in the past. An example is the county did it on our Baptist Road project. We actually applied for a grant in I want to say 2012 or 2013. We did not realize at the time that it would impact our our Tabor limit. It was state funds. It was a DOLA grant. And when we realized that, rather than giving it back, we worked with PPRTA to accomplish and run that project through. So what we did at that point is that we actually had some intergovernmental agreements that described the roles and responsibilities of the county and then PPRTA as we accepted that money and did kind of a unique thing there. So what we were able to do is essentially accept that money and be able to use that. And so that's really the approach that we want to take. So what we want to be able to do is to be able to apply for those funds jointly with PPRTA essentially being the lead agency and the member government being a co-sponsor. So for projects that fall under the definition of maintenance, that grant funding would be allocated through the member government's maintenance fund, similarly with capital and similarly with programs. For the county at this point, and for some of the other member governments, we do not have a program fund, so that at this point, unless that changes with the reauthorization, is something that we would not be able to run projects through the program funds. But I still think that this is a great opportunity for all the other member governments as well. So the benefits of this approach is, as you see in your memo is that we can apply for those state funds. Those could cover shortfalls in our PPRTA projects. If we're able to get some of those funds, that additional funding could be used for other projects. And then realistically, the bottom line is that we won't be leaving money on the table, and we can obtain the funding that is really allocated and should be coming back to our region. And so that we could accept those governments that would, the grants that we would otherwise be not able to apply for. And so the local funding over Tabor could go towards other needs. So basically what we are asking for is the ability to give member governments and PPRTA the authority to apply for these grants, and so that the board or vice chair can sign those grant applications. A lot of those grant applications are very, very quick, and we have to be able to apply for those within a certain time frame, and those don't always fall within the ability for us to bring those directly before we can apply for those. So that's really what we're asking for, is to be able to work with PPRTA and the board chair, vice chair to sign that grant applications. And so in making sure that we are open and transparent when those are submitted, either if we can do it in advance or on the back end, we would report with that project summary and the dollar amount to the PPRTA CAC and board so that they are aware that we are applying for those. Hopefully I've succinctly talked about that and happy to answer any questions.
Good. Richard? Okay. I think I'm 100% in agreement with this, but a few questions, comments, etc. First of all, Rick, I think that is going to probably add an additional load on the PPRTA staff, you and your colleagues. Is that not correct?
Well, for me, it's probably going to be 5 or 6 signatures. Bev, do you want to speak to any accounting? It based on what we did last time 10 years ago, it was just signatures and by the board secretary and whatever Bev has.
So in the case with West Baptist Road, for example, the grant application and everything was done by Jennifer and her staff. And then it came to the RTA board. I received the funds from the state, but really her staff was doing the reporting to the state because they're the project managers. So really from the accounting standpoint, it really wasn't too bad at all. You just had money coming in, reported in a certain way according to accounting standards, and that's just about it.
We're not proposing to take a 10% cut out of it. A cut off the top. I'm not talking about a reduction. I'm talking about taking revenue out of the project. No, we're not proposing to take any revenue out of the project for admin.
Okay. Has this gone before our board of county commissioners yet? Or are they involved in any way?
That's not something that we have taken to our Board of County Commissioners. I think their expectation is that we look at creative solutions, and this we think is a creative solution and still accomplishes the mission of both, at least from my perspective, of the county and PPRTA. I think we still are going to have to take our grant applications to our Board of County Commissioners, but our board meets weekly, and so we don't have some of the time restraints that we have on
Okay.
that. So,
Well, I would ask that you, well, first of all, I'm fully supportive of it. I don't have any problems. I think it is a very good solution, not only for the city, but the county. And I would appreciate it if you bring it up to the, let the, at least as perhaps just as an information item, bring it up before the Highway Advisory Commission. And we would, if you would want, I think we would certainly 100% support what the staff is recommending, commend you for the city-county cooperation, and make the Board of County Commissioners feel even better. The one question, I guess, is, what are the Tabor caps on receiving funds?
I'll take a stab at it, and then Cindy probably knows more than I do. The Tabor is the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. It's a state constitutional amendment in 1992. It set up a formula for year-over-year revenue, and I don't know how it's calculated, but the two factors in what you can increase your spending levels from year to year are population growth and inflation. I don't know exactly how that works, but you cannot spend more than that year-over-year formula allows you to spend. And if you get more revenue, not counting federal, but if you get your own revenue or state revenue over that, then you either have to return it to the citizens, the overage, return it to the citizens, or go through what's normally an expensive ballot measure to ask the voters if you can keep it. So the PPRTA, before Bev and I joined it, but it went to the voters in November 2004. In the ballot, it asks the voters if the PPRTA should be permanently detabered, some people say debruced, detabered from the year-over-year revenue allocation, and the voters permanently detabered the PPRTA from the year-over-year Tabor revenue limit. So the PPRTA can spend whatever it gets. So Cindy, you would know more. Do you want to amplify or correct anything?
So actually you had a very good explanation. The one other thing, often with local governments, like when we passed a sales tax, we include in there, can we also spend excess revenue? But with grants, we can't really detaber that. So that's the problem. We do it with other stuff. Our town does it both with our sales tax, and there's another process with property tax, but the grants get caught. So this is a great solution. I have to say that I think that's perfect.
And I believe Green Mountain Falls and Manitou Springs, I think, are permanently detabered via their voters. Colorado Springs and the county are not. I don't know if they've asked their voters. Jennifer, you might know, but the two big entities are not detabered for revenue increases year over year.
I would just add, if we're unable to take advantage of these funds that are made available to us, what will happen is that they go back to the state and they are allocated in other parts of the state. So I think that's an important consideration.
Mr. Chair, I had some questions for this.
Joan and then Carlos.
Jennifer, I think that this is a brilliant solution. As many of us who have lived here know that for some reason, our dollars go north, but they have trouble coming down south. And I think we could agree on that. And with PPRTA being detabered, this is a win-win situation. I hate to see money left on the table that could be utilized. I hate it even more when it goes back up to Denver to go to the metro counties up there. So I congratulate you and Gail on this. I think it's an excellent win-win situation.
Carlos.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand what it is we're approving here today. It sounds as though with, the Baptist Road project that the PPRTA already has the authority to go after this grant money. And then I seen the letter, you're asking that we grant this authority. Does the PPRTA not have the mechanism to do this today, or do you need some sort of approval or authority or just a head nod? This is a great idea, go for it. I'm not sure what action you need on part of the CAC to say, are we changing some board policy or IGA or something that, what are we changing here that, so you can have this, what you call here in the letter, the authority? It's just a question of what we're voting on.
I think it's a courtesy of the board. It's been 10 years or so since we did it before. So there's lots of turnover on the board. It probably 0 board members were on 10 years ago. So it's a significant enough policy change or procedure change that I think we need to take to the board and get a head nod, get a thumbs up, rather than just do it at the staff level and then the board is doing some head scratching saying, staff, did you overreach? So I think it's out of abundance of caution. It's we're recommending take it to the board, and the staff is very comfortable with it.
And just to follow up, so you already have the authority to do this. You're just giving us the courtesy to say that this is important because it is bringing in Tabor, which has some controversy sometimes around that, and trying to do something like this could raise a few eyebrows. And so just as a courtesy, it sounds as though get the CAC to approve this. You already have the authority, but we want to put the weight of the CAC and the board behind this significant policy change so we can go after the grant money in light of Senate Bill 21260.
Yes, I would agree with that description.
If I could, I think the approval needed because she might not have time to go to the CAC and the board, and it's going to require a signature from the chair of the board. So like in my situation, if it's not board approved, then that's significant. So this is actually giving them the approval to do it in between meetings. So I think we have to approve that and the board has to approve that, right? I think.
Well, this is an approval of a concept plan because we don't have any grants yet, and this may never materialize. The city and the county and Manitou and other member governments might put in half a dozen or a dozen grants and never get them. So this is just getting thumbs up on a concept plan.
Dave?
Just wanted to call the question, make a motion to support the staff recommendation. It really is a brilliant approach, and I'd like to see us support this unanimously to send a message.
We have a motion by Dave to approve this concept. Second by Joan. Do we have additional discussion? Scott?
I just had one quick question. Have all the different agency attorneys weighed in and said this is okay?
I guess what I'm not sure of is some of the other member governments we have from the county standpoint, spoken to our finance and our legal. So I can't speak to the others. But I think in general, we're talking about this as a concept and, you know, if the rubber meets the road and a member entity wants to do that, I would assume that they would be going and talking with their respective attorneys and finance.
And that's one question I have too, Jennifer, is follow on is, has this been approved? Well, not necessarily approved, but run by like the budget people and the attorneys in the county side. And they are comfortable with doing it this way, since it's been like 10 years since it was last done.
And I think I heard maybe Gail start to talk, but again, we still need to kind of brief our Board of County Commissioners. We wanted to come through this process and make sure that this was acceptable. I would say from the county standpoint, I feel comfortable that we've previously done it before, and I don't see why that there's a reason why we wouldn't be able to do it again. So we will certainly be taking this further internally, but I think this, what we are asking for, and just clarify specifically, is the ability to make these applications and have the board chair or vice chair sign. And what I would say is that we are not binding in most cases the PPRTA board to anything, because if we do get awarded the funds, then there are separate intergovernmental agreements that come after once those, and so there would be additional separate actions before those funds are accepted and run through PPRTA.
Gail?
And Jennifer, this is Gail, and I was gonna speak up, and I appreciate you presenting this on our behalf. But to answer Scott's question, you know, this has gone through the city's budget office as well. And the city's in a somewhat unique position because of the way that PPRTA programs are set up for the city's use, that we can actually probably leverage the PPRTA money to capture some of these state enterprise funds that are now going to be available. I think it's a little different for the county and some of the other member governments, but at least give them some options to go and capture those funds. You know, as Jennifer just mentioned, every case is going to have to be looked at individually to see if it makes sense to either have PPRTA take the lead or one of the other agencies to do so, and to also understand where the local match is going to come with each of these grants. Every single one of them still has some kind of local match requirement, and in some cases upwards to 50%. So we're talking about significant dollars coming into our region, and it's important for us to position to be as competitive as possible.
Yes.
First of all, I love this. I think it's a great idea. I guess the only thing that gives me pause is something that Carlos kind of alluded to, and that is kind of maybe the public perception. I have this vision in my head of a headline in the Gazette that says PPRTA conspires with local governments to defy Tabor. You know, maybe that's something we shouldn't even worry about, but I can imagine that some people who love Tabor a great deal would have a degree of concern with this.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
That's a good statement, Dave. Bring it on. I mean, you know, from my standpoint, as a member of the Paso County, you know, HAC, and also a member of this committee, I think what they put together here is it's not circumventing anything. It's going to be out in the public venue, you know, as far as either the city or the county or the member governments, you know, are not going to try and hide any of this. It's going to be out there in the public. And it's just a means for bringing those funds that can be allocated to this area that, you know, a couple people like Joan said, we don't want that stuff going back up to Denver. You know, let's use it down here. We got plenty of projects that we can, you know, use those funds on. So we will deal with that situation, you know, if it occurs. Yes, Joan.
And I think it's important to remember that this is a concept. It may or may not ever be used. To me, this is a way of securing the ability for the member governments to apply for those grant funds and to use them locally. There, I don't foresee headlines that PPRTA is detaboring, but you know, I've do enough local politics to know that somebody's going to complain. And that's just the nature of the beast, but it's not anything that's illegal, immoral, or whatever.
And that's why I say this process, from what Jennifer and Gail, you know, has laid out, from what I see, is that it's an open process. So it's not going to be that we're going to be hiding anything from the public whatsoever. It's just a means to the end of getting funds that, whether it's Calhan, whether it's Peyton, whether it's Colorado Springs, whether it's El Paso County, you know, gives them additional funds to do their job. Yes.
Dave called a question and Joan seconded it, so I think. we need a vote.
Well, I opened it up, you know, for any additional comments, but yes, no additional comments. So let us take a vote on this. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed unanimously.
It was a good message. Passed unanimously.
Yes.
Foot
very-
stomp. Well done. Very innovative. Streamlining, minimizing government, not releasing funding to Denver. That's a brilliant approach. Well done.
All right, next item, monthly change order, City of Colorado Springs, information only. Does anyone have any questions on that list? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next one. El Paso County monthly change order and property acquisition report. Information only again. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, we move on to the next item. We're moving into section 8, item A, report of recent board actions. Rick?
You have the memo in the packet. I think the two items I want to highlight are numbers 10 and 11. The 10 is where the board decided in concept, of course, it's on your agenda to formalize it today, the next item on the agenda, but the board decided to keep Manitou Springs at 2 CAC members, of course, add 1 for Calhan, add one more at-large regular, taking that from 5 to 6, and then the at-large alternates stay at 4, so that keeps the voting members at 17 and the total membership at 21. So that was board approval of that concept. Number 11, legislative report from Danjalan. The one bill we've been tracking is House Bill 22-1062, which would eliminate the sales tax on prepared food and cost the state budget 25% of its sales tax revenue, and probably the same for PPRTA. The board's lobbyist says that it's extremely unlikely to pass. I'm in contact with him a couple times a week, and of course next Wednesday he'll be reporting to the board on that one bill. I'm just anxious for when it dies on the vine.
Okay, any questions for Rick on the board actions? Okay, moving on. Next item is item B, revisions to the CAC bylaws.
As I just mentioned, the board at the last monthly meeting approved the new composition of the CAC with 3 for the city, 3 for the county, 2 for Manitou, 1 for Rama, 1 for Green Mountain Falls, 1 for Calhoun, and now 6 at-large regular and 4 at-large alternates. So that's what's reflected on page 2 of the revised CAC bylaws. And I'd be requesting a formal vote of the CAC on the formalizing the revised CAC bylaws.
Mr. Chair,
Joan,
I would move the revision of the bylaws of the Citizens Advisory Committee as presented and outlined here.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Now that includes the modified composition of the CAC as presented by the board, then, is what you're saying. Okay, wanted to make sure that we had that particular in there. All right, do we have any further discussion? We have a motion by Joan to approve the bylaws for the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Pprta. Do I have a second? Ed? Oh, okay, Ed had already done that. All right. So we have a motion to approve and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Yes.
I just want to give a follow-up. As you can see on the backside or page 2 of your front cover agenda sheet, you'll see 5 vacant slots. There's 3 regular at large. Of course, one of those 3 is the 6th one that the board added. Excuse me a sec. So there's 5 vacancies. So I've asked, and of course, Town of Green Mountain Falls and the Town of Rama have just lost at 1 seat each. So I've asked their staffs to ask their respective board of trustees to let me know which of their 2 seats that they want to move or request the board convert to at large. And I've heard from both Cindy and Becky Frank at Green Mountain Falls. In Cindy's case, that Joan would be requested to the board to convert Joan from Rama to at-large regular or alternate, or you don't care? Regular, okay. And similarly, I've heard from Green Mountain Falls, so I'll be, as you recall, there's a board policy that says that all at-large and at-large alternate CAC members have to go through, have to be approved by the board, and prior to the board subcommittee of the board chair, board vice chair, and CAC chair. So I will be asking that subcommittee, board chair, board vice chair, and CAC chair to meet, of course, as soon as Jim Godfrey gets back from his trip, and then I'll ask them to recommend to the full board that Joan and Ann Esch be converted from town members to at-large regular members. In addition to that, we advertised in November, and we have 3 applicants. One of whom is Tony Joya, who used to be on the RTA CAC. So bottom line is we have two two current members to convert and three new members to consider. So we have 5 candidates for 5 openings. So I'll get that subcommittee process started shortly, and hopefully we can get those 5 slots filled rather quickly.
All right, thank you for that information, Rick. Any other questions on this particular issue? Yes, Joan.
I just want to thank the town of Rama for letting me serve as their second on this board for the last couple of years after I left the Highway Advisory Commission. So my sincere thanks for allowing me to serve.
Yes.
Hi, yeah, this is Ann from Green Mountain Falls. I agree with Joan. I've enjoyed being one of the members from Green Mountain Falls, and if I can be an at-large member, I will still love to do that. Thank you.
And yes, Ed.
Question kind of for Rick. Does this impact Ann and Joan's ability to vote for now, or where do we stand?
Well, they're okay for today, but it raises an issue if I've scheduled the subcommittee sometime in April. I'll have to get an opinion from the attorney. I did ask the attorney about Ann and Joan voting today, and the attorney said because the board's vote last month was a concept plan and not the hard copy of the formalizing the bylaws, that they could vote today. But it does raise the question about next month. So right now, I'd guess there's a 50-50 chance that Ann, Ash, and Joan cannot vote at the May meeting, because it's probably going to be the May 11 board meeting. Is that until they approve it? So they wouldn't be approving Ann and Joan until after the next CAC meeting. So there might be a 1 month vacancy there.
Okay.
We'll work it all out.
Sure.
The old saying goes is it'll all come out in the wash.
That's true.
All right, moving on to the next item. Timetable for Pprta ballot measure 3.
That sure was a Midwestern wash.
As the committee is well aware, since we spent a year and a half or more on the Pprta 3 matrix, the board wants to go to ballot on the Pprta 3 capital projects renewal. Remember, we just have to get the voter approved renewal of the capital portion in this November. Pprta 3 would start, if the voters approve it, would start January 1st of 2025. So I've multiple times I've contacted the member government staffs and asked them to be working on their capital project lists, and that we would need those for the May cycle. So if you're looking at my bottom half of my page 1 of my memo, the timetable. So I'm asking for the CAC recommendation to the board to approve the timetable, which is in more detail is what the attorney has provided, and she's given me the authority to release it publicly. But the summary of the 5 biggest steps are, number 1 is the board would hold a closed executive session at their April 13 meeting. Then we would have a first review by the CAC and the board in the May cycle. In June and July, the capital project list could be revised, particularly if the CAC and board have some questions or concerns about any of the capital projects. Then member government staffs could take those back to their respective governing bodies. And then the tentative plan by the board is to finalize the ballot language narrative plus the capital project list at the July 13 board meeting and notify the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder and the Colorado Department of Revenue, because the Department of Revenue likes to send us an email saying they like to preview ballot measures just in case they find any hiccups. So we right after the July 13 meeting, we would send our intent to go to November 8 ballot to the clerk and recorder, and also send the ballot language to the Department of Revenue for their review and comment. Then at the August cycle, approve the IGA with the clerk and recorder, confirming our participation and agreeing to pay the clerk and recorder fee. So requesting a motion by the CAC to give a thumbs up or approve a positive recommendation to the board for the timetable.
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval of this.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second by Ed. Do we have any further discussion?
I also have some discussion, but it's more directed really to an El Paso County issue. Jennifer, I see the time here. I believe we have a meeting of the HAC toward the end of the month, this month. Would you have your capital list, do you think, ready by that time? Okay, because I would like the HAC to review it so we can then hopefully completely support your recommendations to the board. I'd just like the HAC to be more supportive on important issues and going to the board. We aren't, I'm not trying to tie your hands over.
Absolutely not, sir. Just, we are working very hard to get those lists together.
I know. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a proposal on the table, a first and a second, for approval of the outline as Rick has indicated for the process for the timetable for Pprta 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, passed unanimously with one voter absent. Vic? Oh, should we take her vote as she comes back in? Are you in? We have a proposal, Joan, on the table to approve the actions for the Pprta ballot measure. Are you in agreement with that? All right, thank you. So we have a unanimous vote, 16-0. All right, next item, Pprta 2022 annual report. I'd just like to say that I've looked through that. I'm sure people will have comments in that, but boy, it sure looks nice on the way that it's been put together and all the information and everything is covered.
So each year, at the end of the calendar year, I send out an email to the staff saying we need your narrative and pictures about your accomplishments of the prior calendar year. We received that in February and March. Jessica McMullen is online with us, and she does her magic in assembling the material that we received from the member government staffs. Of course, Beverly's budget page is in there, and then we have the list of the CAC and the board and contacts, member government staff contacts, and the good maps that our brilliant PPACG GIS team put together. So it's similar very similar to last year, but is focused on the accomplishments by the member governments in calendar 21. And currently, using past practice, it goes to the CAC's Public Outreach Subcommittee, and that had been chaired by Brian in years past, Brian West, and there have been 3 or 4 members on there right now, and Tony Joy was on there, but right now Tony's not, is off temporarily, hopefully. But Rick Hoover is the one member of the Public Outreach Subcommittee. I sent that to him, and he found some typos, and we got those fixed. So I think we're ready for discussion about this and any changes we need to make. And Jessica McMullen is online in case it's a technical question. With that, I'll turn it back to the chair to open it up for review comment by the CAC members.
All right, I'd like to open it up for review for the 2022 annual report, 2021 accomplishments for the Pprta. Yes, Carlos.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to thank you, Jessica, for putting this together. It's an excellent document. In fact, I was just, this is just a general comment, but I'm going to just tell you the Pprta and the member governments did a remarkable job in light of COVID and the pandemic. I mean, we had some serious challenges with transit, getting construction projects started because of lack of staff, just a lot of things and challenges. And I just wanted kudos to our member governments and transit. And it didn't really jump out in this report. If I was to look at this, let's say 10 years from now, I wouldn't even know there was a pandemic. So just a general comment. I don't know if this should go to the subcommittee, but just to kind of give ourselves a pat on the back for just some of the remarkable challenges that the Pprta and the member governments have had. It has been difficult. And I think we're all ready to move on and forget about COVID, but it was just a challenge. And I just want to recognize everything everybody's done. And I'd like to see that, if it's possible, put that in the report in a positive way.
Yes, Joan.
I especially like this last page with the breakdown of the projects. It's nice, it's clear, it's concise to be able to, excuse me, see it here and see what's been done. And so I thank Jessica for that.
All right, do we have some other comments on the accomplishments report?
This is Rick Hoover.
Yes, Rick.
With going through it, I just want to compliment Rick and Jessica. Just an incredible job. The layout, very easy to read through, and I just think we just have a real professional product to put out to people, and it's easy for the layman to understand because of the wording and the language that was used. It's nothing to be questioned. Thanks.
Yeah, Rick, I'd just like to follow on that too with Jessica and Rick, is that this report and previous reports also is that it's, having worked for the federal government for many, many years and having to deal with reports and that from the federal government. I mean, this is like night and day. This is a report that the average citizen can read and understand. And so I have to say thank you, for doing that and giving us a product that the average citizen, out there in El Paso County can review and look at and understand very easily, what has been accomplished in 2021.
I agree. This is wonderful. Thank you. This is Ann in Green Mountain Falls. Wonderful report. Thank you.
Do we have any additional comments concerning the report? Yes, Ed.
Jessica's smiling. Does she have any comments, any
Jessica, you were invited to make any comments that you would like.
Yes, Jessica, if you'd like to add anything, I wasn't on the mic, I apologize.
Just thank you all. It's nice to hear that you guys like the design and how it came together. So just thank you.
Yes, Dave.
Again, concur with everything that's been said here. With respect to the distribution of this, and I wholeheartedly support everything you're doing here. And I wonder, with so much shoot me now social media going on out there, are there any attempts to blast this out through what 5 years ago someone would have called these non-conventional distribution, community engagement pathways, and now what is kind of becoming pretty well standardized? I'm thinking the Facebooks and other things where this isn't easily posted, often overlooked, but social media is so powerful now. Almost everything we do is social media. Are there social media links that are also being broadcast as well?
I do share this on the PPACG Facebook and Twitter feeds when it is officially fully available in print. So once we put it up on the website, we do share it.
That's good. Are there other special blasts? And again, I'm not a social media expert. I know if somebody were happy to look through PPACG, they would find it. That's great. I was thinking of being even more proactive and doing some initiatives where we go beyond someone who goes on the PPACG website and just throw it out there across a variety of social media channels and allow even broader. This is great news. We can't overestimate or underestimate the power of this excellent presentation. But I would just it sounds like the answer is maybe not, to the extent it may be, but I would like to just offer that serious consideration be given to using all these new modern social media channels to broadcast what a great job that's been done.
Excellent idea. The probable answer is we cannot in a ballot year because of the state's Fair Campaign Practices Act and the various lawsuits that have occurred over the years. What the board will be hearing in executive session next Wednesday is from the attorney is you cannot do anything more in a ballot year than you've done typically in earlier years. Otherwise, you are at risk of being sued for violating the state law called Fair Campaign Practices Act.
That's a great answer, and I accept that. So let me offer an item for a year from today.
Yes.
Okay, so when it's not a ballot year, let's plop it into a big social media funded blast to get this out a year from today, so that, see where I'm going, so that every year beyond, that becomes the norm. How's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Rick Hoover. A suggestion to the board, the CAC. I normally take a number of these and I put them at the King Soopers out at Constitution. And I asked one of the floor managers if they'd pick them up and throw them away, and they said no. So they're being picked up by customers. And I also leave them out of Sandy's restaurant where the Romeos go. And they are always picked up from there. So these are places where, especially in the county, where a lot of county people come in, and you'll find them picking them up and taking them out. So you might want to think about places you go on a regular basis that maybe you can use 3 or 4 and just leave there and let them pick them up.
So again, whatever you've been doing in past years is okay. It's just ramping up. Instead of printing 3,000, printing 30,000 in order to spread them all over, or send them one to every house, is a no-no.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So in line with what Rick just said, is there any limitation on what we as individual citizens and members of the board can do in sharing this information?
I'm hoping after next Wednesday's executive session to get a document of the do's and don'ts so that I can give that to you. So I'll just leave it at that. With regard to taking a handful of annual reports and taking them to church or the grocery store, I doubt that's enforceable, but you never know.
Miss Cindy.
Just as our town, usually the fair campaign practices is spending money. You cannot spend public money on this. So if you're gonna blast it on your own Facebook or a website, I mean, I'll defer to the attorney, but usually that's okay. So just, we'll wait for her, but it's usually money.
You know, that's a good point. I'm giving a presentation for what it's worth tomorrow through CML. And I forgot, I just posted it today on my LinkedIn page and I've got a zillion likes already. So if you can okay that, send it to us and we can add it to our own LinkedIn's and other social medias.
All right, yes, Ed.
I was gonna say, in past years, I have scanned it and put it on my personal Facebook page and people have seen it that way. But, so it'd be a practice I've done in the
Yeah,
past.
it's already in place. All right, do we have any additional discussion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve it as presented.
Okay, we have a motion.
Oh,
from
sorry, Cindy Tompkins.
To approve the annual 2022 annual report for PPRTA. Has been seconded by Joan. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving this, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We have a unanimous vote for approval of the 2022 annual report, 2021 accomplishments for the PPRTA. All right, thank you. The next item is just the staff field review report that Rick does. Do you have any comments on that, Rick?
Just information. Be glad to take any questions.
Any questions on Rick's report? Hearing none, moving on to item number 9, agenda topics for the next meeting. Do we have any agenda topics that are requested for the next meeting? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any communications at this time that we need to present? Okay, hearing none, moving on to item 11, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I just want to make one comment here. If we get 100% on this adjournment, I think it ought to go into the minutes that we had 100% agreement of everybody in this meeting today. Everything was 100% on our votes. And I think that ought to be in the minutes. I make
That's a
that
good
motion to
point.
adjourn.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I just did.
Oh, okay. Do I have a second? Ed seconds it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 We're not going to have anybody opposed, right? Meeting adjourned at 2:53 PM. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance and
Very successful meeting, Larry. I think you're hired.
I wasn't supposed to have this many times of being chairman.